I'm a mediator, an arbitrator, a trainer of mediators for many, many years, a consultant in negotiation, mediation, and arbitration. I work out of my chambers in London. It's ARBDB, ARBDB chambers in London. For years, I was associated with an institution, with the International Center for Dispute Resolution, left them in 2015. But I've continued with mediation. I was a founding director of the International Mediation Institute. I've had the good pleasure of working with many states through UNCITRAL and ICSID and the Energy Charter Organization. So it's been an interesting life experience. My schooling, believe it or not, was in peace studies. So I actually managed to find employment and a career in peace, in this case through mediation and arbitration. Conflict is natural, and violent conflict and war is the sort of ultimate in conflict, the absolute breakdown of society. And you know, if there was ever a time for the lessons of mediation and of peacemaking and peacekeeping to apply, this is it. And we have it right now. The world is full of strife, and hopefully peacemakers will step up and offer what assistance they can to individuals, to governments. Lots of people in need who are the victims of war are many, you know, the victims of conflict are many. And so there's lots of opportunities to work with people who have suffered, you know, and will continue to suffer. Two stories which are sort of related, both go back very early in my dispute resolution career. Both, interestingly enough, involve indigenous people, in this case, Native Americans. So I thought I would tell the story of those. The first was involved a dispute which crossed the border between Canada and the United States. And I was actually asked, along with a colleague named Tom Colosi, who I learned so much from, to join the Canadian Conflict Resolution Service and meet with them over an existing problem. It seems that strife had occurred within tribal lands which crossed the border, and the service had tried to step in and assist the resolution, but they were having some difficulty. Like all good mediators, we asked some questions. You know, you try to dig a little bit. What happened? Who was involved? And what we found was, in this particular case, that the government had involved the elected leaders of the tribal government, which is okay. But when we explored that a little bit, we understood full well, and I think we also knew that at least with indigenous peoples in the U.S., there are not just elected leaders, but traditional leaders, and they had not been invited. And so what we suggested was, well, you need to restart, and you need to have the right people, and the right people include these people. The second story, a bit different, a little later on, the state of California. In this case, I was actually working with a tribe which was about to enter into very difficult times with a government, U.S. government, in this case, local state government or local government, L.A. Water and Power, a significant entity with lots of economic power. I was asked to work a little bit in terms of preparation for mediation or for negotiation, or worst comes to worst, trial. What I learned over the course of time working with this tribe was how very seriously they approach the process in terms of understanding their counterparty. In mediation, as in negotiation, there was really no substitute for adequate preparation, and they had engaged in that. So that's sort of my second story. And I thought of them both, and they're really more peacekeeping than peacemaking. I mean, the first maybe was a bit of peacemaking, but what they had in common was there were really two lessons that we teach and that we know and that we breathe, in the mediation process. And the first is that the process is far more likely to succeed if the right people are present and participating. So take the time to make sure the right people are present. The second lesson is that there is really no substitute for adequate preparation in the process. And whether that's on the part of the parties or the part of the mediator, there's just no substitute for preparation. So sound preparation, who's involved, what's involved, how do they think, what are their needs, what are their interests, all of which, add to sort of the ability to move things forward in the process. Culture is a big word. There are cultures for companies, not just for states, and not just for tribes. And being in the moment, listening, watching, learning, not assuming that you know, and asking questions that go to what's important for you, and who should be here, and what do I need to listen for, and those kinds of things are important. How people think, you get a lot of this. You get a lot of this, particularly in business. You get an awful lot of this. People are all the same. They're not. They are not the same, and they don't think the same. They don't have the same values. They come from different, societies with different sets of norms, different ethos, and you can't, if you're going to be successful at working across cultures, you have to listen hard, and you have to be aware of that. You have to be aware of your own prejudices, your own thought process, and you have to be able to let go of some of that and understand that it's not about you, and work with people. Sort of the obvious. The world is at war, and we even simplify war, which is really sad. It's not simple, and it's the ultimate breakdown in society when people make war on each other. And as I sort of suggested earlier on, it's not just states. There are people behind these states. There are victims of war. And those victims are on, if there are multiple sides, they are on every side. There are victims everywhere. People that can't get a job, people that can't leave their homes, people that need to rebuild their homes, refugees. It's just, war leaves such a terrible, what's the old expression? I guess I remember from my youth was war is not kind to children and other living things. So peace is an important thing, and mediators should be aware of that, and should embrace the opportunity to be of help if they can. So that's why we think of it now. That's why we need to think of it now.